how to build a social media network that doesn't reward jerks, the weird choices behind Amazon's choice. Google wants you to game in the cloud, and we want to see all your augmented reality pets. All that and more coming up on Tech News Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 86, recorded Thursday, June 6th, 2019. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Hover. Make a name for yourself with Hover. Visit hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year.
Hello, and welcome to Tech News Weekly. This is the show where every week we talk to people making and breaking the tech news. I'm Megan Morrone.
I'm Jason Howell.
So, of course, this week, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference happened in San Jose. It's sort of, I guess, maybe still a little bit going on. Joining us to talk about her thoughts from a developer's perspective is Kamilah Taylor, former senior software engineer at LinkedIn and previously a software engineer at Wolfram Research. Kamilah is now working on an app called Swaay, focused on reducing polarization and toxicity in online discourse. Welcome to the show, Kamilah.
Hi, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here today.
Oh, thanks for coming on. So what stood out the most to you in terms of all the announcements at WWDC?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of big ones. There's definitely the stuff around Swift UI, which is their new framework for being able to build apps. And then there was their sign-in with Apple, which was a big one as well. And there are a couple of other under the hood things that they did. And of course there was the Mac Pro announcement as well, which I think is really more for the extreme professional market. But I think those are the three biggest things for me.
So I know that your app that you're developing now is on the iPhone. Is the Catalyst, the announcement that they made about being able to develop once for iOS and I presume iPadOS and also macOS, was that exciting to you?
Yes, actually, I thought that was really exciting. I mean, so back when I was at Wolfram, I did a little bit of Mac development and always felt kind of painful for me. And so even when I started doing mobile development, I really never dove that deeply into Mac development. And I think this is really exciting because there's been so much energy over the years around the mobile community, especially when Apple added Swift. And I think Catalyst is a huge opportunity to sort of capture some of that momentum that's there in the mobile community to get people to develop more Mac apps, to potentially get more people developing those native experiences instead of the lecture-in apps or TypeScript apps.
Were you surprised at all that Apple kind of went in the direction of iOS for phones, iPadOS for the iPad, obviously? Does that change kind of how you're developing your app based on these different presentations?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised that they separated it out in that way, but it makes sense. And I mean, the rumors were there that something was coming to switches. I know a lot of people were talking about iPadOS. I didn't actually think they were going to go there, but they did. Mm-hmm. But I think it makes sense because I think they're really trying to compete a little bit more with products such as the Microsoft Surface with the iPad. And by separating out the iPad a little bit more from the iPhone, they can, I think, capture that in-between market between the personal computer and the phone a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I think tying the iPad to iOS in that way was maybe hampering that a little bit.
Mm.
What about dark mode? I know there was a lot of talk about it, and I use it sometimes, but I mean, you're on a screen a lot. Is that something that you're excited about?
No, I kind of roll my eyes every time I get really excited about dark mode. I don't get the hype. Okay, I sort of get it. I think especially maybe if you code in the dark a little bit more or something, I do not. I usually am not coding in the dark. And I actually I feel like I have to think a little bit harder when I switch to dark mode. I keep trying to switch on Mojave and then switching back to regular. But I do think that there is an audience there who's super excited about this, right? And who do feel like more at home using dark themes. So I think that's interesting. And the bigger thing for me is the amount of work Apple is doing to not make it harder on developers to support both light mode and dark mode, right? So they added a bunch of stuff in their APIs that you can sort of just automatically switch to that with a bunch of their Swift UI stuff. You can even, and their live preview features in Xcode, you can sort of see what light mode and dark mode look like immediately. And I think that's super exciting.
So then I guess that leads to, are you going to be integrating any sort of dark mode hooks into your app? Is there a demand for it? Have you heard from some of your users saying, hey, we would love to see a dark mode version of this app?
I actually want to start playing around with a lot of the Swift UI stuff. I think it's going to be really hard for most apps to do this meaningfully because because it's iOS 13 only. And if you take a look in the App Store, a lot of the apps out there are actually targeting iOS 9 still or iOS 10. And so I think it's going to be a little while before you'll be able to really take advantage of a lot of that stuff. But if you're a new app, I say go for it. You might as well try and, you can pick iOS 13 as your minimum version number and try it out. And the good thing is iOS devices actually get pretty fast adoption rate.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're at a company like LinkedIn. We should say LinkedIn is one of our sponsors, but
yeah.
And then you decide to leave and create your own thing. What possessed you to leave a job and then just become an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So, I was at LinkedIn for about 5.5 years. So I had a really great time there. I worked on a lot of different apps. And I just had an itch to start building my own stuff, definitely after 2016 and the election and stuff. I just kept on having this thought in my head of I work in this area, maybe I could try and build something, I know this is a hard problem space, but I think we need as many smart people as possible just really trying to solve this, right? This is the next big sort of issue in the tech industry. It was just it has to be solved. And so that was sort of part of my motivation. I really was thinking about that for a lot after the election and throughout 2017. And that's how I decided to make the leap. And it's been a lot of fun. And the other thing that I've been doing as well is working with a lot of startups as well. And that's been fun too, because I've been able to work in different tech domains before. I was working with an AR company last year a lot, Crikey. And so that was a different domain that I hadn't been able to work on at LinkedIn. So it's been a great ride, actually.
So that's kind of the voyage to get to where you are right now. But take a few minutes and tell people what Swaay is all about and kind of what they can expect to see when they download your app.
Yeah, so Swaay is about facilitating thoughtful conversations online, right? And so our basic insight here is that our current social experiences, they really sort of incentivize their engagement, incentivizes sensationalist content, and incentivizes the harassment that we see and the propaganda that we see. And we really wanted to take a look at how can we change the behavior that we reward users for? How can we reward people for actually contributing thoughtful things to a conversation? And how can we change how we're serving content to people and serving news, so it's not necessarily the next sensational headline, and instead it's something based on a lot of different people, maybe from different backgrounds, have contributed thoughtfully to this topic. And that's what we want to surface is the real conversation, and not the conversations that are being fueled by the bots, et cetera, right? Or people who are deliberately sort of trolling for an extreme response. And so that's our vision for Swaay.
So constantly in the news we hear these big companies reacting oh yeah, there are Nazis saying hateful things on our platform, we'll do something about it. Or, they're pedophiles. Oh, okay, right, we'll take care of that. Are you building things into Swaay that instead of just trying to be reactive when someone uses the tool in the worst way they possibly can?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that so yes, like hindsight is 2020, but a lot of the like, oh my God, we're so shocked that our tools are being used like this. You know, there were a lot of like researchers and journalists and people trying to like warn tech companies that their systems that are just like all around engagement were being used in this way and had the potential to be used in this way even worse. And it really wasn't until like 2016, 2017, and now everyone's like, oh my God, we had no idea, right? And it's not totally true, right? Like people had an idea. I think that the reactive patching is not enough because it doesn't actually address the systemic, like this is how you serve content, right? So like for like, it's like every week, you know, like YouTube finds like there's like another like horrifying algorithmic like recommendation that they're having, right? Like the latest one was like with the like videos of children. Before that, it was with like anti-vax videos, and it's all like the same pattern. And every time they like remove that one loop, but they haven't like actually fixed the underlying like mechanism of like how they're recommending videos to people. And I get it, you know, like apparently this serves like 70% of their of overall time spent on YouTube is actually from this, but at some point they have to, you know, like Google has enough money to maybe like take a step back and be like, how can we actually fix this instead of like doing like another reaction?
Yeah, it really is reactive entirely. And I feel like we've seen like a master class in reactivity in the last like 72 hours with YouTube, right? Like maybe a little bit longer than that, but kind of what we're talking about earlier about the kids video being, you know, easily found by pedophiles, you know, in a kind of algorithmic sense. And then we have the kind of, what was it? His name, Carlos Maza, the Vox reporter, Carlos Maza. And then of course, you know, YouTube's announcement, I think it was yesterday, right, that they were going to expel people who were, you know, had white, you know, extremism and white supremacist content and all this kind of stuff. So all of this is happening at once and it's very reactive. Do you think, like, is there a moment where all of this kind of comes to a head and YouTube has learned a lesson? Or do you think that the business model is so built out at this point and it's so huge that there's just no way to right the ship? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they have to actually like take a stand at some point. And this is true for YouTube. It's true for Twitter. It's true for Facebook. So we see this again and again where they'll say, like, for example, their first reaction to this was they said, I think they said something around like, oh, well, we took a look and like the individual videos there's like no problem with that. You see that on Twitter. The individual tweets like were not like a huge problem, right. Or like the individual Facebook posts were not a huge problem. And then they kind of came back and were like, oh, well, we see that this had like a community impact. And I think it's frustrating to me because all of these companies, you know, for years and years, like pitched this like grand vision of this global community that they were building. And none of their policies are actually around how to like foster this and like govern this global community. And like, this is what happens. Like, they don't want to be governing people, but they wanted to build a global community, you know, like you can't have like one without the other. And so, I mean, like this is their bed, right? They need to lay in it. This is the system and this is the community that they built. And I think it's just like, it's not enough for them to be like, this is not the problem we wanted because they wanted this global community. And so this is the consequence of having that.
Right.
Yeah. So Swaay hasn't launched yet, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, are you going into it as opposed to what Twitter and YouTube, you know, they say, oh, you know, we're just an open platform. We're not going to make judgments. Are you going into it saying like, we are going to make content judgments, we are going to remove people, or what's the model around that?
Yeah, I think we're going into this saying that if you want to have a community of people discussing things, then there have to be like rules. Every society has rules. And this isn't about like, me enforcing my like political opinions on you, but this is much more on like rules of engagement and how we all treat each other. And if you're in this space, then there's some rules of engagement. If you can't like abide by those rules of engagement, then this is not a space for you. And that's the sort of thing that we really need. And there's this weird thing where like, I think so YouTube earlier this week, they said, opinions can be deeply offensive, but if they don't violate our policies, they'll remain on our site. And I think it's like the crux of like the very strange way in which these tech companies are looking at this. And they sort of allow themselves to sort of be sucked into this argument, right? Where people are like, oh, you're actually like not being an open space for people who have like a different opinion. And that's not it at all. It's much more around like how you engage with other people like on that platform, right? And if you're engaging in a way that is sort of like that is unsafe towards me, then there's not like you can't have a healthy community in that way, right? Like again, there has to be rules. And so that's something that's like very important to us with Swaay, is to really just like be very open at the beginning about like these are the rules of engagement on this platform.
Kamilah Taylor is an entrepreneur, an engineer, a writer, and a public speaker. And thank you so much for taking the time. Go to the Swaay with two A's.com and you can sign up to find out more information when the app comes out. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me here today.
Great talking with you. All right, we're going to take a quick break and thank the sponsor. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Hover. Hover is a jumping off point for many entrepreneurs, and they want you to start your business with a domain name. Everybody needs a domain name for their business, right? Hover has over 300 domain name extensions to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there is always a domain name just waiting for it. You'll find excellent technical support available to answer any questions that you might have as they arise. Their support team does not upsell you. They only work hard to help you get online. The most important thing ever. Hover has free WHOIS privacy protection, a clean and easy to navigate UI and user experience, monthly sales on popular top-level domains. It's not hard to see why Hover is a popular choice for people starting all kinds of businesses. So much flexibility, so many options. Keeping your domain name separate from hosting actually gives you the flexibility to choose the right platform for your business, because no one wants to be stuck with a solution that isn't quite meeting their needs. And Hover meets those needs in spades. It has, it has all the extensions that you're looking for and just makes it really easy to find. It's just a lot of fun to go onto the Hover site and plug things in there and be like, oh, wait a minute, no one has that one yet? I'm actually kind of surprised no one has that. And if you find yourself saying that to yourself, that's when you know you got to buy it. You got to snap it up, because tomorrow maybe someone will have it and you'll wish you had. Make a name for yourself with Hover. Visit hover.com/twit. You'll get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. That's hover.com/twit for 10% off your domain extension for a full year. And we thank Hover for their support. So I suffer from an affliction, Megan. It's called paralysis by choice. Self-diagnosed, of course. Where when I'm given like a number of options, I have a difficult time simply choosing one good option, because they're all good. It only takes a few seconds of browsing Amazon to quickly realize that it's like the online mecca of choice. You do a search for most products, you'll see endless pages of results. You never knew there were so many options for trampolines. Well, you might also notice that a select few of those options feature an Amazon Choice badge. And at least in my case, I will often, at the very least, evaluate those products. Very often, I'll buy them trusting that Amazon wouldn't dare steer me wrong. Well, Louise Matsakis from Wired joins us to talk about what it actually means for a product to be Amazon's choice. Welcome to the show, Louise.
Hey guys, thanks for having me again.
It's awesome having you back. So first things first, how did Amazon Choice come to be in the beginning? Where did this begin and when?
So I didn't actually know this until I was reporting this story, but it makes sense. It started as an Amazon Alexa skill. So it kind of filled a problem with voice, buying things via voice, which is that if you say, hey, Alexa, order forks, unless you've ordered forks before on Amazon, she has no way, or the smart speaker has no way of deciding what you should pick. So what Amazon devised is Amazon's Choice, so that it would just automatically order that option, the Amazon algorithmically decided option for that product. So that's how it started. And that was in 2015. And then in 2016, Amazon actually put it on the normal desktop and mobile sites because they realized it was a good feature for there too.
Okay. So what about transparency around this? Like, as a user, I see Amazon's Choice and I think, oh, Amazon's really done their homework here. They wouldn't dare show me something and say, put their name behind it if it wasn't the best option here. How do they select these items? Do you have any clarity on that?
Right. Kind of when you're just scrolling, the connotation of the word choice and, Amazon's Choice is that Amazon's employees have done this, right? They're kind of borrowing the language from like a magazine where it might be like, the New York Times Choice or the, Allures Choice or something. But it's really an algorithmically generated decision. And what we know is that it's best-selling products that have a good price and that are available to ship immediately. Those are the three categories that Amazon kind of reveals. But consultants and consumers and people have kind of been watching this think that there are other factors that go into it, such as how often the product is returned, which is a fair, I think metric. You don't want to buy something that a lot of people are returning, even if it's really popular. However, another metric is how many people clicked on that word, clicked on that product, who searched the same string of words. So that's a little bit more deceptive, right? It's just the product that people clicked on because they also use that string of words, which leads to some really weird results sometimes.
So is it at all algorithmically designed just for me? Like if I search for toilet paper and you search for toilet paper and we both just say toilet paper, will we get the same Amazon Choice or will I get a different choice?
So from the small subset of experiments that I did with me and my editor, it seems to be pretty universal. Like it's not something that you would get and I wouldn't get. You might get products that will say like there'll be a badge that's like based on your order history. So that's a little different. But no, it's kind of across the board. It might be different, in other markets, but at least when we were playing around, you get the same thing if you're in an incognito window, if you're logged in, it doesn't really matter. However, they are constantly shifting. So during our reporting, one Amazon's Choice badge showed up, we put it in the story, and then it disappeared. And then when we got ready to publish, it showed up again. So they're changing more often than you might expect.
Perhaps maybe something is a choice until there are no more available. And so then the choice moves to the second choice or something and then comes back because, hey, there's more stock or something. What I find a little kind of interesting, maybe a little disturbing on your previous point was that people clicking on an item enough times could potentially feed the algorithm that says this is a popular one. Let's make it Amazon's Choice. But once it gets to that point, more people are going to click on it. Doesn't that kind of feed the snake? It's kind of like at that point, it's popular because it's popular. And when does that ever change?
Yeah, and I've actually heard from people after the story that was published, some sources told me that they have, had other people just search for specific key terms and then buy their items so they could try and get the Amazon's Choice badge, right? Like, trying to game the system. So yeah, it's not a great kind of metric usually, but I think it's really smart on Amazon's part because like you said, choice paralysis is really real. And the beauty of Amazon is that it's not like eBay. It's not like Etsy where you're scrolling through tons of listings and you have no idea how to differentiate them. Amazon's really trying to make you buy something as quickly as possible. And I will say for the most part, if it's a forks or something, there's not going to be that much differentiation. But there are some items where, you might end up buying a counterfeit or like really not the best choice. And it was Amazon's choice.
So let's talk about counterfeits. I've had the experience a few times where I've looked at Amazon for like a brand name thing, like clothes or something, and then instead of saying like we don't carry that brand, it usually shows me something similar. And you wrote about that phenomenon in your story. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with Goyard, which I'm probably not saying that right, but it's this very fancy brand that I would never buy, and they're actually not really available that much online at all, which is perfect for Amazon, right? And they're these really expensive tote bags, like they cost thousands of dollars. And if you search them on somewhere like Nordstrom will just be like, hey, we don't carry that. Do you want to check out, Marc Jacobs or whatever? However, on Amazon, they will give you a dupe. So they'll actually give you a bag that looks just like that bag. Or if, you search a specific, designer shoe or a, brand name item, they might just show you something that kind of looks like that, which is smart, but I think is kind of troubling for brands who really want you to, not buy the knockoff version of their product.
Yeah, no kidding. How confusing for the consumer if it's not so completely obvious that they're not buying the authorized product. And I think a lot of people probably just see, we're so conditioned with search engines and everything to see our results, click on the top one because that's obviously the best one, and make the decision from there. I would imagine a lot of that probably folds into people's purchasing habits within Amazon as well, right? Similar to a search engine.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's like to be careful here is that with the bag, it's a dupe, right? It's not a counterfeit in the technical sense, in that it's not like stealing intellectual property. There's not a fake logo on it or something like that. Although that happens too, it's more like they're copying the design, which is a true and tested thing in fashion that Zara and H&M wouldn't exist if they weren't copying the big designers. But it's not as though if you search H&M for designer, they're gonna rip off the name. I think that's kind of the misleading part. And then slap an Amazon's Choice badge on it. They're not going to say this is Zara's choice for this designer.
Right.
So it's almost like the everything store, right? They're like, because I just searched for a Madewell jacket, which isn't that expensive, but it just shows me other jean jackets that kind of look like, it's a jean jacket. A Madewell jean jacket is not doesn't look that different than other jackets, but they're just basically trying to show you, we have everything. And if you think you want something, we really know what you want. And it's the Mogan Junior Vintage Distressed Dark Washed slim fit crop denim jacket for $13.99.
Mogan.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because earlier this week, actually, Amazon announced that they're gonna, pushing more into fashion. They're gonna be launching these capsule collections with influencers of these limited edition clothes. They have now a search engine where you can search by fashion photos and find similar products. So I think, Amazon's Choice and these kind of fashion search terms are a great example of hey, we're probably never going to cover Madewell. We're never going to carry Madewell because Madewell doesn't want us to carry their products. However, we're happy to be the place where you get the knockoff for half the price.
Now, I'm curious to know, because I didn't have a chance to read your previous article, but before the show, we were all talking about your article about this pair of Trump socks that went viral, and that the woman who actually made the socks initially, before it totally exploded and went viral, she ended up kind of getting lucked out in a sense by Amazon's algorithm, by a sea of knockoffs that suddenly came to the scene when they saw that there was some viral energy behind it. Was that part of your inspiration for writing this, and what does that tell you as far as how Amazon's service works for sellers?
I think a good thing to think about, to back up a little bit, is part of the reason that she got screwed and that so many people thought they were buying her products but were actually buying from counterfeiters is the way that the buy box works, which is this weird thing that you probably don't notice. But when you click on a product on Amazon, whatever it is, let's just say a bottle of detergent, and it says Tide, and it looks like you're buying it from Tide, right? However, in some situations, you're actually buying it from a third-party seller who also offers that product, or they say they offer that product and they're actually offering a counterfeit. But Amazon obscures that. You don't see, 50 offers for Tide detergent in a row. You just see the one who won the buy box. And that's another way that Amazon just helps you add things to your cart and, buy things really quickly, is that you might not realize, this listing said, the authentic made in USA Trump socks, but I actually added them from this third-party seller. And that's really not very clear. Whereas if you search Trump socks on eBay or something, you would see everybody selling them, in a row, right? And you have to choose which listing you want. Amazon collapses all the listings into one place. And that's what makes it really easy for counterfeiters, because they're basically hiding behind the legitimate listing.
Interesting. So you never really quite know what you're getting with Amazon, but hopefully if you're a Prime subscriber, some of the, and then that's another layer, right? Some things fall into the Prime category and people see that as a point of quality and say, well, it's got the Prime label, therefore it must be legit. And Amazon will back up some products there as well if they carry that. But I think the overarching theme here is that it's really hard to know exactly what's going on when it comes to suggestions through Amazon or what you're buying. Probably pretty good to be extra careful when you're shopping, so that you're getting exactly what you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think just remember that Amazon wants you to make that decision as quickly as possible. And in some ways that's great, right? That's why people love Amazon, right? It makes it a lot easier than online shopping used to be, where you're scrolling through all these different options and you don't really know, but they haven't really eliminated that problem. And it's still kind of worth it to do your due diligence a little bit, especially if you're buying something expensive or something that you're going to put inside your body or on your face or something. I think that's really the most important time. Some socks, disappointing, really bad for the seller. But, if you're buying medication or, cosmetics or something that you're going to give to your kids, definitely kind of poke around and make sure you're getting exactly what you want.
One thing you can be sure of is whether or not the product is breakable, it will be packaged in a giant box with tons of plastic packaging.
Yeah, plastic or paper or whatever. Yeah, lots of empty space.
Yeah,
yes.
That you can be sure.
Or you're going to get 3 different boxes and they're all going to have one tiny item in it. Right?
Exactly, yes. That you can be sure of.
Exactly.
Louise Matsakis, really great to get you on the show again. Wired.com. Definitely go there and read both of these articles that we talked about. Louise, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Google held an online streaming event where it finally shed a bit more light on its upcoming Stadia game service. This is Google's cloud-based game streaming service that aims to turn basically any Chrome browser running on a device into a high-powered top-tier gaming system. Google's announcement a few months ago was a little shy on some of the major details, but as of this morning, we know more. We know some titles. We know a rough launch date, pricing. We know more about the business model, which was really one of the big questions was, is this going to be the Netflix of gaming, all on the cloud, pay one fee, get everything, all you can eat. And it's definitely not going to be that.
Yeah, that was what was so interesting. Like, I was so convinced that that's what it was going to be that I didn't even, you were like, no, you weren't paying attention, Megan. It's not all you can eat. I was just like, well, then why would you even do it? And I get it if you don't already have a game console. So I don't know who those people are. Like, I know our family didn't have a game console and everyone was shocked about that. But we're not gonna, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe like my kids would be really interested in this because it doesn't require thousands of dollars of hardware, but they also don't play those games that they were showing off. Like, they're fine with, iPhone games.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what it looks like here, like we're about to enter the next phase. We're about to enter the next generation of game consoles. Microsoft, PlayStation, Sony, they both have their next consoles are expected to be announced very soon and released possibly as early as next year. So we're right on the cusp of that. If Stadia is kind of in the mix with them too, then maybe that makes more sense. Instead of paying for an entire console and owning, paying per title for that console, skip the console cost, just pay $10 a month, which would be the kind of pro level that you'd be paying on a monthly basis with Stadia. But you still have to buy your titles a la carte. And so you're still buying them. Google has said that the cost of those titles would be similar to, buying those titles on other platforms and everything. So,
well, the Founders Edition, which they also offered, was like $130. Is that how much the Founders Edition?
$130, $300 value, but $130, yeah.
And so that was 2 months, and then it was also the controller, and then you could buy another controller for only $69. And then the big thing was the early access to your Stadia name.
So you could lock in that name.
Yeah, if you don't want anyone to steal your name. So I guess Anthony already signed up for it, and they didn't let him lock in the name yet.
No.
And it looks like it delivers in November as well.
Right, yeah. So if you want to use Stadia at all in 2019, you have to do the Founders Edition. That's how you get early access to it. And it's actually 3 months, not 2. You also get a 3-month buddy pass, so you can choose one person and give them 3 months of pro access. Pro access, by the way, gives you 4K, 60 frames per second, HDR resolution streaming. If you're doing the free service, which actually launches in 2020, that's going to be called Stadia Base, and that's a 1080p maximum. So you could conceivably pay nothing on a monthly basis, but buy your games through Google. And so let's say you pay $50 for this game and have it in the cloud and play it for free. You're going to be capped out at 1080p. But you didn't have to pay for a console,
Right. You just had to pay for the games.
You just had to pay for the game. And it's stored in the cloud. So how do you feel about this game that you own being stored in the cloud instead of having an actual physical? And then, of course, there's the controller, right?
But you don't have to buy that controller.
You don't have to buy the Stadia controller. Stadia controller has Wi-Fi built into it. So with this service, the idea is that instead of looping through the computer or the device that you're using and then going to their servers, it connects directly to their servers, so that'll bring down latency. But you can use third-party controllers, or from other consoles. They're just going to loop through the device and potentially add some latency. I'm not sure what that amount is or whether it would make that huge of a difference. But your ideal would be to get their controller in order to do that. So pre-order it now. I actually did sign up for pre-order. I could not lock in my name. We were considering Stadia name squatting, and
I'm still considering it. Well, I mean, presumably, if you and Anthony couldn't lock in your name, nobody can lock in your name yet.
Right? No, totally. No one can. I think that will only happen once things start shipping or whatever. Right. Hey, we've shipped it. Here, log in here, and blah blah blah, and then you got to really jump onto it.
Yeah.
Some of the games: Baldur's Gate 3, which is PC and Stadia only at release. Mortal Kombat 11, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Stadia gets a couple of exclusives. Get Packed, which they showed off, which looked like a fun cooperative game.
Enjoy packing and moving.
Yes, isn't that fun? Also a game called Guilt, which you liked the look of during the demo. Get Packed, by the way, looks really similar to a game coming out by the studio SMG called Moving Out, and that comes out this year. So two games with a very similar premise and look coming out. But,
and I don't mean to make fun of like the moving simulator game, because like the work job simulator, like my kids love to play that game.
Totally.
And I don't think they would like love a desk job necessarily. So, I mean, maybe it's therapeutic, because I personally find moving and packing to be one of the like most egregious tasks. Like I literally, when I moved to California from Austin, I left my boyfriend there, who's now my husband, surprisingly, and like I just left all my stuff there. I was like, I'm moving to California. You pack up, and if you like me, you can come. Otherwise, just keep all my stuff.
And that worked for you.
Yeah, it did.
Oh, here you are. Oh, there's my stuff. Thanks. Could you put it over there, please?
Right. So maybe I will play this game and feel better about moving.
Is that a game? Oh,
The Extremist. Yes.
The Extremist, also known as the Extremist. More game announcements are actually going to happen throughout E3, which is only just beginning. But they did say, mention just as a random point, Pixel 3 and 3a are the only phones that Stadia is going to work on. It is going to work on, Chromecast. In fact, the Chromecast Ultra is included with the Founders Edition. It is going to work on Chrome on a Chrome OS tablet or PC, desktop, all the different places. But on phones, only the Pixel 3 and the 3a for now, and I'm assuming the Pixel 4 once that's launched. But that's kind of disappointing. Hopefully Google opens it up, and I think that's their plan eventually, is to open it up for more phones.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like, you could buy like an Acer Chrome tablet or something and be able to, but not if you have like a, another, like a Samsung phone.
I guess not. Maybe they're just controlling it in the beginning to make sure that, the quality is up to snuff, and then they'll open it up. Google does that with their services sometimes. Cellular unsupported. So if you've got like a standard 4G connection and you're out and about and you want to just like hop on, do some gaming, that's unsupported. But that will probably change once 5G becomes more of a thing. 5G kind of opens the playing field, literally, for that. So I'm sure that's going to kind of open things up. And Microsoft and Sony are both doing something similar to this. They're offering, Microsoft's working on something called Project X Cloud to supplement its next gaming system, next generation. And then Sony also demonstrated a streaming service at last year's E3. So they're all kind of similar. Like, a lot of people are saying this might be the last generation of consoles that follows the standard formula of I buy a console, I buy games for it, and that the future is going to be in the cloud the way Google is showing off here with Stadia. And I think that remains to be seen whether that'll actually work. But if that is the future, Google got in really, really early. And that's what Google's banking on.
I mean, I think about in terms of like the Oculus Quest that we just got, like that, the reason why we were also interested in it is we don't have a gaming PC and like have no intention of getting a gaming PC.
Right.
And that was all VR was like, well, you have to have this giant rig that's going to cost you a lot of money. But suddenly it's like, oh, everything's on the device. Like this is amazing. And so, I mean, this is where we're all moving. Like, nobody's going to own a car anymore. No one's going to own a house. We're not going to own underwear anymore. Everything's just going to be in the cloud.
Underwear as a service.
Yeah. I mean, why do we all have to have our own underwear?
Seriously, UAAS. That's the next wave of entrepreneurship. We should start that company, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe
all
we
right.
shouldn't,
So
actually.
I want to thank Matt very much. Matt sent us a video. You guys send us videos. We want to see you watching us. We want to see where you're watching us, how you're watching us. We just like to look at you. That's creepy. So Matt sent us this video. That's an AR cat that appears to know that Jason is allergic.
Look at the AR cat. Making me all sneezy and stuff. We're really frozen in time, though. The cat is the only thing that's actually moving.
And he didn't even really tell me, I don't think, how he did this.
I have a guess. I mean, I don't know if this is it exactly, but Google at Google I/O had announced that they were bringing AR into search.
Right. So that's where.
And that launched a week ago.
Oh.
So.
Didn't you have like an octopus or something or what? Yeah.
Here, so I'm going to do a search. We don't have a camera on this, but that's okay. I'll do a search for cat on my Pixel. Mm-hmm. And then down here, if you take my single, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Right there, it says meet a life-size cat. And so I can tap that. Oh. And then it'll go into like this AR mode where it'll load the cat. This is the augmented reality representation of the cat. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's the same one. And then view in your space. And when I hit that, it does the pass through. And it's not going to work here because the angle's all wrong. But you basically scan your floor or the surface, and then it can place it wherever it is. And like I said, I can't do it because it's just going to see me.
Yeah. Hi. If you have that, whatever that is that a Pixel? Is that how you do it?
This is a Pixel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a AR. Any AR core device, which is a lot of phones.
Send us your AR pets. Megan at twit.tv. You can share it anyway. You can take a video of your phone with your phone. You can upload it to YouTube. You can make it private and then just share it with me. We want to see your faces.
Yeah, we want to see your faces
or your
and virtual
AR
representations of your pets. Please, that's all we ask for. Tech News Weekly records live every Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific at twit.tv/live, and you can be part of the show by emailing us at tnw@twit.tv.
And you can subscribe to our show wherever fine podcasts are sold for $0. And you can find all those ways at twit.tv/TNW and follow us on the social media, Twitter, Instagram. And you can tweet directly at me. I'm at Megan Morrone.
And I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to everyone who helps out. Burke, John, Jeff. I'm sure I'm missing some other J names in there, but if I am, maybe your name starts with J. Let us know, and we'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.